Welcome back to The Explainer, folks. Grab a comfortable seat and tune in, because today we are embarking on a fascinating exploration into the inner workings of the human mind. If you've ever felt like your massive, sky high goals are somehow completely at odds with your actual day to day momentum, well, you're definitely not alone. We're going to decode the hidden mechanics of a really curious phenomenon we like to call the ambitious idle mind.
Okay, let's dive into this, because it really is one of the greatest contradictions of human behavior, isn't it? Why do our biggest dreamers, the folks who imagine these incredible, bright futures and just want so much more from life, why do they often look like they're doing absolutely nothing? I mean, on the inside, they've got these monumental goals. Yet on the outside, they struggle to just put one foot in front of the other in the present moment. Society loves to just slap a label on this, right? They'll call it procrastination or just plain old laziness. But as we'll uncover today, what looks to the naked eye like you just doing nothing on the couch is actually a highly complex system of mental conservation hard at work. Section 1. The core. The lazy yet ambitious mind. To truly wrap our heads around this kind of mind, we have to completely toss out our old definition of laziness. Seriously, scrap it. It is not a character flaw. It's actually a highly calibrated, super advanced form of energy conservation known as selective motivation. You see, psychology shows us that this type of mind doesn't actually hate work itself. What it vehemently, passionately hates is inefficient effort. It's constantly doing the math, measuring whether a task is actually worth the precious energy it'll cost to execute. If something feels forced, completely unnecessary, or totally disconnected from a meaningful payoff, motivation drops like a rock. But when a task aligns perfectly with their identity, their grand long-term goals, or their deepest values, boom, they focus with laser intensity and can work for unbelievably long stretches. The effort is completely dictated by alignment, not just blind obligation.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive internal divide going on here: routine-oriented motivation versus future-oriented motivation. The ambitious mind's brain is energized by the thrill of anticipation, not boring repetition. Think of it like this. It's like asking a world-class marathon runner to get super hyped up about tying their shoes. It just doesn't work. Daily, mundane routines rarely trigger any kind of strong dopamine response for these folks. But daydreaming about long-term success, that deeply, deeply excites them. That grand vision is their premium fuel. But the mundane, everyday steps required to get there, they just feel intensely draining. Because this brain's reward system is tuned entirely to the big, shiny outcomes, not the tedious processes.
Now, this internal tug-of-war directly, heavily impacts what we call their daily cognitive budget. Just look at how this mental currency gets spent. You've got 35% going straight into planning, 25% spent predicting outcomes, 20% on maintaining these incredibly high internal standards, and a measly 20% left for actual physical action. You see, a lot of these individuals carry this massive weight of perfectionism. They want to do things properly, flawlessly even, not just quickly. So merely starting a task feels incredibly risky unless the conditions are absolutely perfect. All that sustained thinking, imagining the future, weighing every single option, it consumes real heavy cognitive energy. So the big takeaway here, they were spending massive amounts of cognitive currency before their body even moves a single inch. Section 2. The reaction. Calmness under pressure. So now that we understand the sheer amount of internal horsepower this brain needs just to process its own ambitions, how does it survive the loud, chaotic world outside? Well, it's actually incredibly easy to misread these highly efficient individuals. What might look to you like emotional numbness or just a cold, uncaring demeanor is actually a masterclass in high-level emotional regulation. Calm people absolutely still feel anger, stress, and fear, but their calmness is tied to what psychologists call low personalization, which basically means they don't automatically blame themselves for every negative situation. That biological pause you notice when they're stressed, that's just the thinking, logical part of their brain stepping in and pumping the brakes before the reactive, emotional brain can drain their batteries. And what looks like indifference, that is actually a profound learned ability to just accept uncertainty, rather than anxiously, exhaustingly trying to fight it every step of the way.
Right, so the really crucial point here is that this kind of calmness isn't apathy. It's a highly protective, learned psychological skill. By actively regulating their emotions, instead of just ignoring them, and by meticulously separating how they feel from the physical action of responding, they successfully protect their mental bank accounts. Neuroscience actually backs this up, showing that by intentionally slowing down their responses, they significantly drop their stress hormones.
So if this sounds like you aren't being cold or aloof. You are quite literally guarding your precious cognitive budget from totally unnecessary emotional spikes, keeping that energy right where it belongs, aimed firmly at your actual goals. Section 3, the defense. Protecting peace by cutting ties. But what happens when the outside pressure just becomes too much? When emotional regulation alone simply isn't enough to plug the energy drain? Well, this mind will ruthlessly defend its mental sanctuary. And for them, walking away from someone isn't some sudden, dramatic, throwing plates kind of emotional outburst. Not at all. It is a highly rational, four-step protective procedure. Step 1, they set clear, firm boundaries. Step 2, they monitor their physical reaction. They actually feel their nervous system draining, getting tense or anxious just being around that person. Step 3, they spot the emotional manipulation. And finally, step 4, they cut contact. For the hyper-efficient mind, staying tied to someone just out of a sense of history or guilt, that is a terrible, losing investment of cognitive energy. So what actually triggers this heavy-duty protective procedure? It almost always boils down to 5 major energy thieves. First, there's the constant disrespect of boundaries, which forces the brain to stay stuck in this exhausting red alert defense mode. Second, there's feeling an actual physical drain, where your nervous system goes haywire because the dynamic is just biologically unsafe. Third is dealing with folks who manipulate you with guilt or fear, constantly making you second-guess your own reality. Fourth is completely one-sided effort, which we all know inevitably leads straight to burnout. And finally, harmful behavior that simply never, ever changes. To the selectively disciplined mind, repeated behavior is the ultimate predictor of future behavior. Cutting ties with these thieves isn't done out of spite or anger. It is a required, permanent procedure to stop cognitive burnout in its tracks and fiercely protect their internal peace. Section 4. The power of selective discipline.
Okay, we've unpacked the internal economy, we've looked at the emotional regulation, and we've seen those ironclad defensive boundaries. And it all perfectly, beautifully serves this one ultimate truth. They rest not because they avoided work, but because their brain has already worked. I love that. It brilliantly circles back and answers our starting contradiction. What society so carelessly labels as laziness is, more often than not, the result of intense, exhausting prior mental effort. If you are harboring these ambitious, future-oriented goals, your brain is doing monumental heavy lifting behind the scenes all day long, planning, evaluating, protecting your peace, regulating your emotions. It is a full-time job. You are not lacking discipline. You are validating your intense cognitive efforts and your incredibly high internal standards.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Take a really good look at your own life and your own ambitions. Are you fighting your own efficiency, constantly beating yourself up and feeling guilty because you don't fit into society's standard mold? Or are you finally ready to work with it? It's time to stop fighting your own nature, embrace your selective motivation, ferociously protect your peace, and start harnessing the immense, incredible cognitive power you already hold. Thanks so much for tuning into The Explainer today. Keep questioning, keep dreaming, and I'll catch you next time.